Have you ever wondered why the silence around you feels so loud? Why the quiet moments pull you deeper than the noise ever? Could Chosen One, the world is shifting, and you're not imagining it. This isn't just a phase. This isn't some coincidence. This is what awakening feels like. For so long, the truth about who you are has been covered layer after layer of distraction, denial, and distortion. You were taught to question yourself, taught to stay small, taught that your instincts were irrational. But deep within you, beneath the ache of waiting, beneath the fear of being too much or not enough, you have always felt it. The pull, the whisper, the knowing that your story would not end like the others, that you were never meant to fit where others found comfort. That something inside you was always different. And now, Chosen One, the world is about to see why. Because your power, the one they tried to suppress, silence and subdue, was never lost. It was merely hidden, buried under the weight of expectations, obligations, and lies. But now the weight is lifting. Now the veil is thinning. Now the light is returning, and it's coming from within you. You're not here by accident. You're not listening to this by chance. This message, it's not entertainment. It's confirmation. Confirmation that everything you suspected about yourself was true. That the power you've felt was not a fantasy. It's the beginning of revelation. The world is on the edge of something it cannot explain, and your name is written all over it. They won't understand at first. They'll question your clarity. They'll challenge your strength, but they will not stop your rise, because something ancient has awakened within you. You don't need anyone to approve it. You don't need them to believe it. You only need to remember. And remembering is how it begins. Think back. Chosen One. Back to when the world tried to teach you how to be ordinary. Back to when you learned to silence your truth, to shrink your voice, to ignore the fire in your chest. You were told to wait your turn. To earn your value. To be grateful for scraps, while others drank from your river. But something inside, you refused. You carried your light in secret. You danced with the storm when no one was watching. You wept with the stars and rose again each morning like it was written in your blood. And now the time has come. The hiding ends here, because you are not becoming powerful. You already are. You are not about to awaken. You are remembering that you never fell asleep. This is not about becoming someone else. This is about reclaiming who you always were before the world told you who you should be. And as you do, the world will notice. They'll feel it in the way you speak. They'll hear it in the pauses between your words. They'll sense it in your presence, even before you arrive. Because when power like yours steps into alignment, reality shifts. Not through force. Not through control, but through resonance. Your energy is starting to ripple through places your body hasn't even been yet. Your presence is being felt by people who do not yet know your name, but they will. Because this is not just a personal transformation. It's a cosmic one. And you, Chosen One, you are the signal. You are not here to blend in. You are not here to apologize for your intensity. You are here to bring order to chaos. To bring clarity where there has only been confusion. To bring light where others fear to look. The world will ask what changed. They will wonder where your strength came from. But the truth is, it was always there. Dormant, quiet, waiting. It just needed the right storm to rise. And oh, what a storm you've walked through. The losses, the betrayals, the sleepless nights, they were not wasted. Each one was a forging. Each one was a carving. Each one was a preparation for the moment you are stepping into now. Look around you. Everything is shifting. Everything is aligning. And the timing is no longer someday. The timing is now. You've hesitated long enough. You've questioned long enough. You've waited for permission long enough. But the only voice you ever needed approval from is your own. And that voice, it's clear now, isn't it? It no longer tremble. Ease. It no longer hides. It speaks with the weight of centuries, the strength of stars, the certainty of truth. Because you are no longer a seeker, you are the answer. And when the answer speaks, the world listens. Let them wonder. Let them doubt. Let them call it arrogance, if they must. But you know the difference between arrogance and knowing. Arrogance demands attention. Knowing simply is. And you are. So breathe into this moment. Feel it move through you. This is not fiction. This is not wishful thinking. This is the unveiling of what has always been true. The world is about to see your true power, and it won't be subtle. It will not come quietly. It will not ask for acceptance. It will not seek applause. It will move like a wildfire across everything they thought they understood. Because power like yours was never meant to be hidden forever. And now that it's rising, there's no going back. Not to who you were, not to what they wanted you to be. This is the moment everything changes. The silence is over. The waiting is done. And you are ready. You are ready, but not because the world says so. You are ready because something ancient inside you has stood up. And once it rises, it does not sit again. This knowing, this fire, this clarity, it is not fragile. It does not falter under questions. It does not shrink under pressure. Simply is. And it's becoming more with every breath you take. Chosen one, do you feel what's building? Not outside, not around you, but within. A force that does not need validation. A truth that does not require agreement. A path that does not ask for a map. Because you are not walking by sight anymore. You are walking by remembrance. And in this remembrance, there is no turning back. You see it now. How everything was preparing you. The heartbreaks were not curses. They were chisels. The betrayals were not signs of weakness. They were flames that burned away the false. And now what remains is pure. It is powerful. It is you. The you that always existed beneath the weight of silence. Beneath the noise of what others told you to be. Beneath the fear that once wore your name. That fear no longer fits. That story no longer holds. Because you are not in the chapter of survival. You are in the chapter of emergence. You are not the question. You are the answer. Not the echo, but the voice. Not the shadow, but the source of light that casts it. And the moment you accepted this truth, the world around you began to shift. Have you ever sensed a power inside you that refuses to be hidden? A force that's been quietly shaping your destiny, even when the world told you to stay silent? Now is the moment to embrace that truth fully. If this message resonates with your soul, type "I am already awake" in the comments below. Your story matters, and your voice deserves to be heard. Don't just watch, join a community rising together. Hit subscribe and be part of this awakening. The world needs your light now more than ever. Not because the external changed, but because your internal stopped hiding. This is the sacred reversal, the holy inversion, where the power returns inward. Where the silence becomes symphony, where the waiting ends sand, the becoming begins. No one taught you how to do this, because no one could. This journey was not in the books, not in the rules, not in the systems. It was always in the remembering. And now that you remember, they will feel the difference. In your eyes, not in your walk, in your stillness, because you are no longer reaching. You are receiving. You are no longer proving. You are embodying, and embodiment is louder than any sermon. Let them watch. Let them guess, but do not slow your pace. For their comfort, do not soften your flame for their ease. You were never meant to be safe. You were meant to be sacred. And sacred things they stir. They disrupt. They call forth what's been hidden in others. 2. Because your power isn't selfish. It's contagious. Your presence isn't just a shield. It's a signal. A signal that says, I came through the fire, And I did not come empty-handed. You brought back truth, brought back vision. You brought back the courage they forgot they had. And this is why you rise, Dot, not for yourself alone, but for what your rising unlocks in the world, Dot. So when the voices whisper again, those old doubts, those quiet fears, you will smile. Not because they are gone, but because they no longer lead you. You lead you. And where you are going, fear cannot follow. Doubt cannot build. Delay cannot remain. Because time itself bows to the one who remembers. You are not late. You are not lost. You are not broken. You are exact. You are aligned. You are arriving, and the path ahead, it's not something you find, Dot. It's something that forms beneath your feet with every step you take in truth. So walk, Dot, speak, Dot, stand, Dot, and know you are never waiting for a sign. You are becoming one. There were moments when everything felt quiet, Dot, so quiet. It made you wonder if you had been forgotten, Dot, if the universe had turned away, if your prayers were echoing into nothing. But chosen once-alence is not absence. Silence is preparation. You see, before the most powerful storms, there is always a stillness. Before the world witnesses something great, it pauses holding its breath. And you have been in that pause, in that sacred stillness, not because you were abandoned, but because something greater was being formed. Inside you, you were never forgotten. You were being fortified. Every unanswered prayer, every closed door, every delay that made you question your path. They were not denials, they were instructions, because your path was never going to look like theirs. Your journey was never going to follow the well-lit roads. You were chosen to walk through the wilderness, Dot, so you could remember your fire, Dot, so you could build your power away from the noise. So when the world finally turned to look, you would not just be ready, you would already be rising. The world will ask how you did it, how you stood when everything told you to sit, how you moved when fear tried to paralyze you, how you believed when there was no evidence you should. And your answer won't be found in textbooks or formulas, Dot. It will be found in the quiet corners of your past, Dot, in the nights where you whispered hope through tears, Dot, in the mornings where you rose without applause, Dot, in the decisions you made when no one was watching. That is where true power is born, Dot, from perfection, but from perseverance, Dot, from privilege, Dot, but from presence, Dot. You showed up for your own becoming, even when it was messy, even when it was lonely, even when it hurt, Dot. And now, that version of you, the one who carried the weight without complaining, that version is the foundation for the glory that's arriving. They didn't see the tears. They didn't see the internal wars you fought. They only see the shine. Now, but you know what it cost. You know what you buried just to survive. You know what you lost to find your way back to truth. And that knowing, it can't be faked. It's why you move differently, Dot, why your presence feels deeper, Dot, why people sense something in you they can't quite explain. Because you've met yourself in places most people fear to go, Dot, and you came back whole, Dot. Now, the world will meet a version of you that does not negotiate with fear. A version that no longer waits to be chosen, because you've already chosen yourself. And this isn't arrogance. This isn't ego, Dot. This is divine memory. Dot, this is what happens when a soul remembers its contract. You didn't come here to repeat what's already been done. You came to rewrite, Dot, to rebuild, Dot, to reveal. Reveal what? Yourself, Dot, your true self. Not the one shaped by survival, but the one shaped by fire and destiny, Dot. This is the version of you that was always waiting. The one that doesn't flinch anymore. The one that doesn't explain their radiance. The one that doesn't dim to be accepted, because acceptance is no longer your goal. Alignment is, and you are aligning now with your purpose, with your strength, with your divine blueprint. You'll feel things shift. Opportunities that once passed you by will return, but this time you'll be ready, because you're not chasing anymore. You're attracting, You're not forcing, you're flowing, and this is what they won't understand. That your power didn't arrive overnight. It was cultivated in the quiet, sharpened in the shadows, refined in the waiting. You didn't become strong by accident. You became strong because you refused to be anything else. You made a decision, even when you were breaking, to keep going. And that decision is why you shine the way you do now. Not with noise, not with spectacle, but with truth. A truth so loud it echoes in your silence. A truth so undeniable it breaks every limit placed upon you. This is your emergence. This is your unveiling. This is the part of your story where the world sees what you've known all along, that you were never ordinary, that you were never random, that you are always called. And the call, it's no longer a whisper, it's a roar. If your soul feels this truth, type "I was never forgotten" in the comments. Let this be your declaration, your arrival, your moment of remembrance. Like this message so it can find another soul who's been quietly waiting to rise. And subscribe to this space, because the next part of your awakening is already on its way. There is something no one tells you about being chosen. That before the rise, there is a breaking. Before the unveiling, there is the undoing. And before the power, there is the paying. Chosen one. You know this already, don't you? You've lived it. You've bled for it. You've questioned everything because of it. And yet you're still here. Not because you were spared from suffering, but because the suffering did not destroy you. It carved you. It revealed you. And in its deepest moments, it confirmed something even you had forgotten, that you were never fragile. Yes, your heart has been heavy. Yes, your faith has trembled. Yes, there were nights where your voice broke under the weight of invisible battles. But nothing you've endured was wasted. Nothing you felt was accidental. Every ache, every loss, every silence was proof. Proof that something in you was worth attacking. Proof that you were carrying something the world could not yet understand. They told you to move on. To get over it. To act like it didn't happen. But how could you? When what happened wasn't just pain, it was initiation. You weren't just hurt. You were marked. Marked by something beyond comprehension. Marked for a mission you didn't ask for, but could never deny. Because this calling, it wasn't a choice. It was written. And written things always find their way. You've tried to run from it, tried to forget, tried to go back to a life where you didn't feel so much. But that life never fit, did it? Because once you've touched truth, falsehoods suffocate. Once you've heard the voice inside you, noise becomes unbearable. And once you've glimpsed who you really are, the old identity shatters. That's what's been happening. The shattering. Not a punishment. A permission. A permission to rebuild without pretending. To live without lying. To rise without apology. You are not here to be palatable. You are here to be powerful. And power doesn't emerge from comfort. It emerges from collision. From the moments you thought would end you. But instead, they introduced you to yourself. And this version of you that is now emerging is not a product of ease. This is forged truth, tempered wisdom, born again fire. Do you understand what that means? It means you can no longer be manipulated. No longer be baited into battles that are beneath your destiny. No longer be controlled by the fear of being misunderstood, because you will be misunderstood. That is the cost of clarity. You will be resisted. That is the cost of resonance. You will be doubted. That is the cost of walking in a direction no one else has dared to go. But the thing is, you no longer need consensus. You no longer require companionship to feel complete. You are not waiting for the world to agree with your becoming. You are becoming, with or without applause, with or without comprehension. You walk now with a different kind of rhythm, one that doesn't match the world's noise, because it was never meant to. The rhythm of a soul that has returned to its own heartbeat. And that rhythm, It's steady now, Dot. It's clear, because the pain has passed through, and what remains is purpose. The people who once doubted you will feel the shift in your presence, not because you seek their recognition, but because your energy no longer asks for permission to exist. Dot, it simply is, and that is terrifying to those still living in performance. Let them look, let them wonder, but don't let them distract you, because what you are building now is sacred, not flashy, not loud, but unshakable. Dot, and in time, they'll realize that the one they overlooked was the one they were meant to follow. And even now, as you reflect on what you endured, you might still feel the sting of it, the ache, the questions that never got answers, the nights where the silence was louder than any scream. But chosen one, hear this. The fire did not fail you. It found you. Because only the ones carrying divine instruction are sent through divine intensity. You were not punished. You were prepared. They told you to forget, but your soul refused. They told you to move on, but something deeper in you whispered, no, there's more here. Because there was meaning in the pain. There was code in the breaking. There was truth buried inside every loss that could not be accessed any other way. You are not meant to be untouched or meant to be transformed. And transformation is never tidy. It is never quiet. It is never polite. It tears. It burns. It undoes. But in the unknown, Joe, return to what is real. All that was false in you, all that was forced, all that was inherited, but never aligned, it crumbled. And you mistook that collapse as evidence that something was wrong. But collapse was the only way your spirit could rise. You prayed for clarity, but clarity required confrontation. You asked for strength, and life gave you struggle, so your strength would not be theory, but embodiment. You asked for peace, but peace is never permanent until you've made it through. Warned, refused to let it change your nature. And that's exactly what you did. You felt the rage. You touched the sorrow. You broke in 100 unseen ways. But you never let it kill the part of you that believes. And that part, that tiny, trembling ember of belief, that is what saved you. It didn't have to be loud. That didn't have to be confident. It only had to survive. And now, it doesn't just survive. It leads you. That ember is now flame. That flame is now light. That light is now language. And it speaks for every version of you that wasn't heard the first time. Do you see it now? You weren't just walking through suffering. You were carving your return. Every scar, a syllable. Every silence, a song. Every fall, a foundation. And now you stand on what once tried to bury you, not as a victim, but as proof. Proof that something eternal cannot be erased. Proof that spirit cannot be silenced. Proof that what is marked by divine fire rises. Always rises. So when they ask you now how you survived, how you kept going, how you stayed soft in a world built to harden you, you will not list facts. You will not justify your path. You will simply be, and your being will speak louder than any story, because you did not survive the fire. You became it, and that fire doesn't apologize for burning. It purifies. It reveals. It clears the way for everything that cannot be faked. That is why you shine differently now, not because you are above pain, but because you are no longer afraid of it. Pain has already taught you what it came to teach. And now it bows. Now it steps aside, because the one it was sent to refine is awake and ready. And walking. And unshakable. There was a time you spoke softer, not because your words lacked truth, but because you wondered if anyone was truly listening. You dulled your brilliance to keep from blinding others. You measured your steps to avoid being seen as too much. You waited for anyone to say, it's safe now. You can be all of you. But that moment never came, because the truth is it was never going to. Chosen one, those who fear their own power will always fear yours more. They taught you to silence yourself, not because you were wrong, but because you were right in ways they couldn't control. They told you to stay in line, not to follow what was proven, not to keep your dreams digestible. But your soul was never meant to be palatable. It was meant to be provocative, and so they tried to shape you into a version of yourself that made them comfortable. But comfort was never your calling. Disruption was. You were born to disturb what's stagnant. To rattle the cages others have accepted as homes. To speak what hasn't yet been voiced. To become what hasn't yet been seen. And so, the silence you've known was never about being overlooked. It was resistance, because your voice carried the weight of truth. Truth, real truth, cannot be tamed. Let them look confused. Let them scoff or criticize. They do not understand, because they have not yet remembered. But you remember now. You remember that your silence was never weakness. It was strategy. You were learning this frequency of your own voice. And now that you know it, you speak with the force of prophecy, not loud, not chaotic, but undeniable. The ones who tried to suppress, you didn't realize you were not asking for space, you were building it. Every rejection was redirection. Every dismissal was protection. Every silence was setting the stage for your return. And now you are returning, not as the version they tolerated, but as the version that can no longer be denied. Do you feel it? That shift in the air when you enter a room, not to fit in, but to radiate? That moment when your presence speaks louder than your words? That is not arrogance. That is alignment, because you're no longer searching for mirrors. You've become the light that reveals what mirrors cannot show. They'll say you've changed, that something about you feels unfamiliar. And they'll be right, because you are no longer the version of yourself that asked for permission. You're the one who remembers they were born with authority. And authority doesn't shout. It simply moves. Through intention. Through clarity. Unwavering presence. You move differently now. Not to prove yourself, but because you've already been proven. Not by them, but by everything. You survived to get here. The fire didn't burn you. It built you. The storms didn't drown you. They taught you how to breathe beneath the waves. And now the world feels that breath, it senses something in you it cannot define. But it cannot ignore, because there is something ancient about your energy, something familiar, like the sound of destiny finally waking up. And when you speak, when you act, when you simply are, everything around you begins to shift. Not because you're demanding change, but because your very existence requires it. You've walked through too much to go back to pretending. You've seen too much to return to the script. You are no longer who you were, and you do not owe the world an explanation for your becoming. You owe yourself liberation. So let them wonder. Let them question. Let them try to label what cannot be contained, because you are no longer asking. You are declaring, this is your voice, and it was never meant to be silent. There is a shift that happens not in the sky, not in the stars, but within. It's not loud. It doesn't announce itself with thunder or flame. It moves quietly, like breath returning to the lungs after a long silence. You've felt it, haven't you? That subtle rearranging of everything. It's in the way people look at you know, with curiosity, with hesitation, as if sensing something they can't quite name. It's in the way rooms feel smaller now, not because you've changed size, but because your spirit has stopped shrinking. Chosen one, or no longer bending to the world, the world is bending to you. Not because you demand it, not because you shout, but because you are finally in rhythm with the truth. And truth, when embodied, requires space. The world doesn't know what to do with someone like you, someone who no longer asks, someone who doesn't dilute their message, someone who doesn't make themselves smellerto, make others feel comfortable. You have become the interruption, the unexpected frequency, the mirror people didn't ask to look into. And yet, They cannot look away. They feel something in your presence, not ego, not performance, but a depth they abandoned long ago. And that unsettles them. Because you make them remember. You make them remember what it felt like to believe before they were told not to. Dream before they learned fear. To move before they were taught to freeze. You're not just awakening yourself. You're pulling others with you. Not by force, but by being. By simply becoming the evidence that freedom is still possible. That radiance is not reserved for the few. That destiny still breathes. And what's most disarming is that you no longer need recognition. You've passed that threshold. The one where validation was a currency. Where you waited for others to name your worth. But now, you name yourself. And in that naming you, claim everything that once felt unreachable. This is the part no one talks about. That awakening doesn't end in awareness. It continues into embodiment. It means your thoughts no longer wander in doubt. They form in alignment. They move with direction. They create with certainty. You are not here to explain this to everyone, because most are not ready to hear what you now live. They will ask you to tone it down. To return to reason. To speak in ways that sound familiar. But you do not speak in familiarity anymore. You speak in truth, and truth doesn't need translation. It echoes where it's meant to. Let them wonder. Let them whisper. Let them try to measure you against who you once were. They will not find what they seek, because that version of you, the one who hesitated, the one who carried the burden of being misunderstood, does not exist anymore. What stands in your place is a force, a presence. A current too vast to explain. And you didn't become this, you returned to it. You remembered. You remembered what they tried to erase, that you were not sent here to fit. You are sent here to rearrange. Not with noise, but with frequency. Not with pressure, but with presence. And now that presence is undeniable. You don't need to prove anything. The proof is in your walk. In your decisions. In the way silence surrounds you and listens. Because when you embody your truth, the universe responds. It clears paths. It whispers guidance. It opens doors that logic cannot explain. Because your journey is not built on logic. It is built on law. The spiritual law of cause and reflection. What you hold within shapes what stands before you. And now that you hold certainty, certainty becomes your mirror. They will call it luck. They will call it timing. But you will know. You will know it is the natural result of finally walking as who you were always meant to be. There is no force stronger than a mind aligned with its own truth. No spell more powerful than a soul no longer hiding. You have stopped hiding, and because of that, nothing will ever be the same again. And still, the world stares, not because it recognizes you, but because it doesn't. Because something in you no longer reflects what they've come to expect. You've shattered the mirror they once used to define you. And now they stand before Yunit with certainty, but with silence. Chosen one, when you finally break free from the image they built, they won't know where to place you. They will look for the old signs, your softness mistaken for permission, your silence mistaken for doubt, your hesitation mistaken for weakness. But those signs no longer live here. They were shed like old skine in the sacred fire of your becoming. Now your presence tells the story. Now your stillness speaks, louder than their noise, and it unsettles them, because your freedom questions their chains. Your clarity exposes their confusion. Your peace disrupts their control. They may try to pull you back, not out of malice, but out of memory. They remember the version of you that needed validation, that begged for belonging, that dimmed your power just to be understood. But that version was never the truth. That version was survival. And now that you no longer live in survival, they cannot reach you in the same way. You've changed frequencies. You've shifted timelines. They speak in limitation, but you respond in purpose. They move in fear, but you breathe in knowing. And no amount of confusion can Unmake what you've already remembered. This is the difference now. You don't seek recognition. You move in alignment. You don't repeat old patterns. You rewrite the whole design. And because of that, nothing can remain the same. The room responds differently. The atmosphere bends. The moment you enter a space, you become the space. Not through ego, not through demand, but through resonance. Because your spirit no longer waits at the door. It walks in ahead of you. It prepares the way. It holds the truth. So you no longer need to perform it. And now you see it clearly. This was never about them. This was always about your remembering who you are without their reflection. Because when the mirror breaks, you finally see yourself without distortion. And what you see is UNCONTA, INABLE. It is not pride. It is not defiance. It is remembrance. And those who are not ready to see their own reflection will resist yours. But that's no longer your concern. You've traded their comfort for your clarity. You've chosen truth, even when it cost you approval. And that choice has changed everything. Now you walk in such alignment that even your footsteps sound like prophecy. Now you speak so fully from the center of your being that silence follows like reverence. Because this is what happens when someone lives from the inside out. They no longer echo the world. They reshape it. And you are reshaping everything. Something has shifted, not just in your thoughts, not just in your energy. But in the very air around you. People feel it before they can name it. They glance twice, not because of how you look, but because of how your presence moves through space. You've stopped asking. You've stopped doubting. You've stopped dimming your flame. And now the world is adjusting. Because your frequency no longer blends in. It reshapes everything it touches. Chosen one. This is what happens when someone finally lives as who they truly are. You don't perform anymore. You don't negotiate your knowing. You don't fear your own power. And because of that, you have become the very force they once warned you about. But you are not here to destroy. You are here to awaken. You are not here to dominate. You are here to disrupt with grace. And oh, how powerful grace becomes when it walks without apology. They stare because they cannot place you. You don't fit their molds. You don't repeat their patterns. You don't carry the heaviness of trying to belong. Because you finally know you were never meant to belong. You were meant to transform. And transformation doesn't ask for permission. It flows. It arrives. It remakes. You are no longer in waiting. You are no longer in hiding. You are the evidence that someone can go through hell and still come out holy. That someone can be broken and still burn with purpose. That someone can be silenced and return with a voice that cannot be denied. This is not motivation. This is memory. Your soul's memory. The moment you stopped looking outward for answers, the inner doors began to open. The moment you stopped begging, reality started bending. And now the world is responding it to what you want. But to who you are, you no longer walk with hesitation. You walk with design. You no longer react. You respond as a creator, not a follower. You carry too much truth now to entertain things that aren't aligned. You've seen too much to be fooled by the old illusions. And though it may seem like you're walking alone, the truth is you're walking ahead. You are the echo of what's coming. A living message to the ones still sleeping. They will ask you how you changed, how you rose, how you stayed soft when life tried to harden you. And your answer won't be a line. It will be your life, because your life is becoming the message. Your choices are now declarations. Your presence is now prayer. And the universe listens. Clausolito those who walk in remembrance. You didn't come here to survive. You came here to shift timelines. And that's exactly what you're doing. Every time you say no to what dishonors you. Every time you say yes to what expands you. Every time you act as if your value is not up for debate. The universe recalibrat. Dot, do you see it? How much has already changed? Not because of what you had, but because of who you refused to stop becoming. The old world trembles as it cannot hold someone like you anymore. You stretch beyond limits. You reach beyond logic. You move with intention that cannot be mapped by fear. You are no longer a participant. You are a pattern breaker, a system shifter, a new law written in motion. You thought you were late, but you were simply waiting for the world to catch up to your truth. And now it has. And still, this is only the beginning, because the force inside you, it doesn't plateau. It expands. It continues. It evolves. It awakens others. You are the ripple, the sacred disturbance, the shift made flesh. And with every breath, you are calling others into their remembering too. This is why your journey matters. Not just for you, but for the ones who need to see it's possible. Because when they see they see themselves, not who they are yet, but who they are becoming. You've become the living permission, the proof, the path. And as you rise, you lift others with you, not by dragging them, but by radiating so bright that they can finally see their own way forward. That is power, not to command, but to inspire alignment. Not to control, but to mirror divine timing. And so now, chosen one, you don't chase, you magnetize. You don't chase legacy, you become it. You don't chase destiny, you walk as it. This is what they cannot explain. And this is why you will no longer explain yourself. There are no more justifications. No more shrinking. No more waiting. You are not ahead of your time. You are the time. And the time is now. So breathe. Stand tall. Speak as though the entire universe is listening, because it is. Walk as though the road will rise to meet you, because it will. Live as though the heavens are watching, because they always have been. You have nothing left to prove, only more to become. And as you becometh, world transforms.